Hi, welcome to part 3 of the button GUI tutorial. Last tutorial, we took our button code that we made and we put it into a class, and we explored a little bit what it's like to create a class. And now we have our buttons running in a class. This time we're going to make some modifications to the class, and they will be of the nature is that we're creating arguments to pass in to our class into the constructor. Okay, and that's how we create different sets of these variables. Now we're gonna tackle some of these other things like icons and keys and the labels. So let's tackle this label first. I'm just gonna cut this and put it a little bit up here. Okay, so the challenge here is that we have to pass in a number of different labels, which we might not know from instance to instance. So, for example, we might want to create a with 3 different buttons and 3 different labels. We might want to create a bank of buttons with 3 different like maybe 9 different buttons, but only 3 labels that repeat or something like that. Okay, so I suppose there's a number of different ways to approach this, but I'm going to show you this one approach that I'm taking to this problem. Okay, so let's revise our constructor here, and we're going to deal with this concept of labels, and we'll just keep the same labels that we have. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to pass it in to the constructor as a single string, and we're going to delineate it by some kind of delineator, and then we're going to split that into an array so that the single string can go into, depending on how many delineators we use, can go into a variable amount array. All right, so we're going to go here, the string label array, we're just going to declare it here. All right, we'll declare it here, and then we'll initialize it in our constructor. All right, and then we're going to create an additional argument here. We're going to call it a single string. It's going to be one string, and it's going to be a L, B, L, and let's do capital S labels. Okay, and we'll create a string, a single string. Oh, except it's a constructor variable. We might as well put it up there with the constructor variables. We'll have a single string, and we'll call it LBLS, capital S. And then we'll pass it through the constructor to our class. So LBL capital S equals ALBL capital S. All right. So now we have a single string coming in here, but what actually needs to happen now is we have to parse a string, split it by a delimiter. So I believe we can do it up here. That's fine. We might as well. So we'll do, so LBLS, capital S, is a single string. However, we want to get it into an array of strings. So we can do that using the split command. LBL, capital S equals split. I'm sorry. LBL, is it LBLS? So our string, our array of strings, LBL, is going to equal, and we're going to use a split, and it's going to split the LBLS by some delimiter, and I'll just use the colon as the delimiter. Okay, now we've populated our LBL string array with a split single string. So let me try to demonstrate that in a new sketch, just to make it a little bit more clear what's going on. Okay, so let's say we take a string called A, and it is going to equal something like this: A, B, 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 C, 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 D, 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 something like that. Okay, that's a single string that looks like that, and then we'll say string array B will equal a split string A. and we'll split that by the delimiter colon. And the delimiter needs to be a character, so single quotes. And then let's print out B. We'll print array B, so you can see how it looks. So if we do that, we see here it splits by the delimiter, it gets rid of the delimiter, and it puts each thing on one side of the delimiter into its own slot in an array. So 0 will be AAA, 1 will be BBB, 2 will be CCC, and 3 will be DDD. Okay, so that's how that works, and that's how we're going to be able to pass arguments into our class that have variable amounts. We're going to create an array of variable amounts. Do that. See, now it's giving error because we've added an argument to our constructor. So we're going to do 3 labels maybe. So in that colon delineated format, let's say the first one I think is hi-hat. And then colon, snare, colon, kick, or maybe it's kick, I think. And then snare, for example. Okay. And then this one, let's just put some kind of random things. We'll say button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So if we run this, it might throw an error. I believe it will. No? Okay. And see, now our labels are, oh yeah, because we formatted them correctly. Very good. Okay. So, and just a reminder, what we did with the labels here is when we're drawing the labels, it's this text here, we're going to draw the labels of I, which is I is the number of buttons. We're going to go through the number of buttons. But if there are more buttons than labels, it'll just repeat the label array will repeat itself. So it's modulo label length. So let's say there's 9 buttons, but only 3 labels. It'll draw, label 0, 1, 2 on the first 3 buttons, as is the case. First, and then it'll repeat itself. Draw that, like that. There are more labels than there are buttons, so let's do 2 buttons there. It doesn't matter because it'll just use the first 2 labels. 1, 2, right? So then that's kind of a fail-safe to make sure that it doesn't throw an error when you have too much of one, too much of another. Okay, so this is a basic technique we're going to repeat a couple times now. So the idea is that we don't know how many labels or which labels there are, and so we can't actually initialize the array with a certain amount, So what we'll do is we'll send it as a single string, some kind of delineated string, and then we'll parse that by that delineator, and we'll populate that array with X amount, however much we want, depending on how many items we put in, separated by that delimiter. Okay, so we can do the same thing with these icon paths. So this is slightly more complicated because it has an additional level. It has these image icons. So let me just put that together with these. Let's put that under here. So and then the icon paths. So what we'll put in here is, I think we're going to do a similar pursuit here. We can put in string labels, and then we'll put another string. We'll put on a separate line. String ICON, maybe like that, icons. We'll put icon paths, okay? And then we'll create an argument in our constructor. Now, this isn't necessary. If you don't want to change the icons, if you don't necessarily need to have pictures on top, you can or you can't do this. And just a reminder, the icons there, let's see. Do we have a thing? they're located in your data folder. So I think I'm here. Right. So you have to put the pictures. You don't have to, but if you put the pictures in your data folder, you can refer to them without like a path directory. Okay. So what we'll do is again, let's copy that instead because we're going to need to use those again. And then we'll have icon paths, then the icons, and then on and on. And here, oh yeah, where we're creating this argument. So we'll do a string, and we call it icon. So a as a constructor argument, a ICONP capital S, something like that. Those probably aren't the best names. I'm sure you can come up with something far better. So ICONPS equals a ICONPS. Pass that in. And then we'll do this split thing again. We'll say I think we call it icon paths. Icon paths equals split ICONPS, and again by that same delimiter, the colon. Okay. And of course now we have to add these things in here. I'll paste that little bit of text down here so I can see it. And then I will copy just the string bits and I'll pop that in here. And then I'm going to have to get rid of the commas and all that business and change those to colons. So, and the double quotes. So we'll just make that all one colon, so separated by a single colon. It's kind of hard to see, so let me put this on its new line. And then that all becomes one colon. And then it double quotes on each side, but one single string. And we'll go ahead and copy that into here as well. Okay. And this step now, because even though we have loaded up the paths as an array of strings now, we have to load up the icons. So we're going to grab the images from that data folder, and it's looking for that icon paths. Right? So, right, okay, so we're going to create an array of icons, initialize an array of icons, array of p images called icons, and it's going to be the same length as the array is going to be the same length as the icon path. So we'll have as many images as we do paths, right? And then we're going to loop through that, and we're going to load image based on the icon path. So each of the icons now will have an image based on the icon paths. And then now we can draw the images on top. So we'll just uncomment all this stuff and draw. And let's see how that goes. All right, this is just the extra bit, reference bit I forgot to delete. And then there you go. They're in there. Of course, they look slightly funny when they're stretched out. So I guess they work best maybe on square buttons. And I mean, there are things, I won't get into it now because I don't want to fiddle too much with it. But you can, for example, adjust how you draw the image. You know, so instead of just making it the same width and height of the button, you can scale it somehow. You know, you can make a scale factor. I have a way of doing that, but I don't think that's pertinent to this particular tutorial right now. I don't want to get bogged down in all the drawing bits. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I would just scale it or not change the height and the width or do something like that. In any case, moving on. So you see how we do that? Basically, same thing. We create a string, we split the string, and then we load it up here in the constructor. So we're doing a lot of work here inside the constructor itself. Okay. So one thing I didn't do in my original code that was just outside the class was we didn't have a way to change the colors of the buttons. And I thought maybe that would be nice if we have a way to change the colors of the buttons. So what we're going to do, and this involves a couple steps as well, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the exact same thing that we've been doing on the same process. So we're going to create a string up here in the constructor variables, and we're going to call it colors. Colors, maybe CLR capital S, colors like that. And then we'll initialize it in the constructor. Let me make another line here so it's a little bit, it doesn't fall off the edge. And I'll put a string A, CLR capital S, and we'll pass it through. CLR capital S equals A, CLR capital S. Now, so now we can split it. So we'll say, and now we need to initialize an array of strings, right? So we'll have the single string colors here, and we'll initialize the array of strings under here. We'll get the keys in a bit, and we'll call string array CLR, something like that. And then we can just do this same process here. CLR, which is an array of strings, equals split. It's CLR capital S, and again, by the colon. Okay, and we'll do that. Now, this part is slightly tricky now, or this is the other complication that's arisen, is because we really need this data type called color to fill. It's this RGB kind of type. If we put a string in there, it's going to balk. It's going to say, I don't know what this is. It's expecting a color type or these 3 numbers or something like that. Well, there's a little conversion process. It's a bit hacky. It's a bit fiddly, but it's okay. When you go to, say, for example, the color selector, you can get RGB values, but also get these hex values. Okay, and that can be communicated as a string with some little bits of conversion. All right, so let's look at how to do that. I have a little patch I've developed here. Oh, well, it's here somewhere. Right, string to character. Oh no, this is for the keys. Sorry, let's look at the original. GUI buttons. This must be it. Oh no, that's my that's my video. All right. Let's just see. What did I do here? It is, I just don't remember exactly the syntax. I don't have it committed to memory. We have to do this. We have to, on hex, here we go. So we'll copy that over. And just paste that in here for now, and we'll look at what this is. Okay, so basically you can take a hex value, which is something like this, FFFFF, something like that. Okay, and that can be a string, and then you can use this command on hex, and it will take as its argument a string. Okay. Okay. Actually, let me go ahead and demonstrate that in a sketch. So if we do void draw Okay, you can draw, say, we'll just do background. If I want to grab a hex value, I can, let's grab some kind of orange or something like that, darky orange. So it's D3. We'll copy that, and we'll paste it into our background here. Okay, D3931A. Well, let's see what happens when we draw that. Oh, it works. Okay. Huh. Okay. But in any case, I don't think we can bring them in. It's easier to bring them in as strings. So let's create then a string. And what we need to translate that becomes the letters FF. I don't know why it's like that. Or maybe another way around it. But the pound then, or the hash, is going to be FF. All right, so let's create a string, and we'll call it A. And we'll say it equals this. FF D3931A. Okay, and that's our string. All right, so if we put A in there instead, try to run it, it'll say it's not looking for a string, it's looking for something else. And so then instead we can use this unhex then. If we say unhex, and then we put that string A in there, it'll unhex that, and it'll become a color. All right, so that's the sort of process. We have a string, we pop it into unhex, and then that can be a color that we can load into fill or stroke or background or what have you. And that. So let me get rid of this line, otherwise get me in trouble. So we've created then instead a array of strings called color. We've split the colors, created an array of strings called color. Now we have to pop those in as, and we won't change the push color. We'll just leave that yellow. All right, but we can change the fill for the just a normal color, okay, which is here. So I'm gonna just copy that line, paste it underneath it, and just comment that out just in case we run into trouble. All right, and then again, fill, we're going to, within fill, the first thing we're going to do is unhex, and then that has its argument there. Okay, so fill is going to be some value, which is a string unhexed. Okay, and then in this unhexed is going to be that string that comes from that string array called color. So CLR, and then it will be I, just like every other one. All right, but we might not, again, just like the icons or the labels, we might not have as many colors as we do buttons. So we'll just do modulo CLR.length. All right, so that way the colors will just repeat themselves if there's more buttons than there are colors listed. Okay, so that's essentially it. But now what we have to do is figure out what to put as the argument. So we've passed the argument here. It's our last argument, string of colors. It's a single string that then gets split into an array of strings here. Right? So how do we put in as a final thing? So let's put a comma here and then a hard return. We'll start the argument on the next line. Okay. And basically it's going to have to look like a lot of these hexes, except we're going to have to substitute FF. So there's a couple things we just have to remember to do. So let's say we want some kind of purpley kind of thing, hot pinky purple. So we'll say the first color will be this. Let's copy that. And we'll put that here in a string, right? So we can paste that there. Remember that the hash has to be replaced with FF, and then we're going to put a colon. So that'll be our first color. Let's grab some kind of turquoise blue or something like that. Nice shiny turquoise, something like that. And that's going to be, we can copy that and paste that there. And then replace that hash with FF. Okay. And then I put a colon there. And then let's make it kind of a bright green. Something like that. Copy that hex. Pop that in there. Change the hash to FF. Okay. And maybe some sort of hot orange, something like that. Copy that. Paste that in there. Again, change the hash to FF. Okay. And then end that entire thing with a double quotes. One single string there. And we'll just keep that color scheme for both sets of buttons. We'll just copy that over and paste that in there. Okay. So now if we run this, hopefully it works. Now you notice each button has a different color scheme. And it just repeats itself. It's the 3 colors or 4 colors, and then it repeats itself here. We can increase the number of buttons for that other one. Let's make them 12. Okay, and we can take the icons off that one so we can see the colors better if we want. So yeah, if you don't want any icons, you just leave this completely blank. So what you would do is you'll pass it, I guess you'll pass it an empty string. That's actually a good question. Let's see if that works. Right, okay, it doesn't work. So what we probably need to do is have some Boolean or something like that. We'll get to that. Let's put that back for now, just so we can make sure we understand how this thing works. So yeah, so we have these buttons that are still working, have the color scheme changing, and the labels that change, and the icons that change. So clearly from what we just happened, want to have buttons that don't have maybe labels or don't have changing colors. I mean, obviously they have to have some kind of color, so we'll put in something. So that'll be okay. Sometimes we might not have any labels, so we'll need to have a way to say something that it's not going to have anything in there. So why don't we do, let's have a tag, presuming, I mean, you can change this tag to be whatever you want, but presuming, you'll never have a button called none, or you'll never have a picture called none, then we'll just use the word none, okay? And so we're going to go in here, and we'll start with the labels then, and we'll say, we'll just do a little if statement, okay? And we'll say if, and remember comparing strings, I don't know if you've seen this in previous videos, but there's a special syntax to comparing strings in an if statement. So if you do if, we're going to say some string dot equals, and then some other string. Okay, and that's how you do the if statement. Dot equals. Okay, instead of the the normal syntax. All right. So we're going to say if the original string is going to be this LBLS, and if that equals the string none, then so actually, what we're going to do is we're going to say is not equal to none, right? Okay. So we'll do this. We can use this. It's a bit convoluted, but we can use this exclamation point. That means is not equal to none. Okay. But sure, we can deal with the equals none first. All right, let's do that. And we'll make open. So if LBLS is equals to the word none, then we'll put open that scope up. Let's press Command T to line everything up. If it's equal to none, then what we'll do is we'll initialize LBL. That, remember, is an array of strings. And we'll make it an empty array of strings. We'll just have 0 items in it. So let's say LBL equals new string array with 0 items in it. Okay, string array 0. Okay, I think this should work because then everything else goes through the amount of strings. I think it does, huh? Doesn't it? So it says labels will be what's LBL? LBL dot length, right? So I modulo LBL dot length, which is 0. So it might try to put a 0 there. Let's try and see what happens. Okay, just bear with me. So if I put say buttons 2, we'll say none. Let's see if it works. Oh, it does. Oh no, then it puts none in anyways. Huh. Oh right, because I didn't say else. Okay, well it still might not work, but so if it's done, then LBL string equals 0. Else, that means if it's not actually equal to none. Else, then we'll do these things. I have a feeling this still might error. Okay, it does error because it doesn't like the none part. Okay, so another approach to this really is that we use some kind of a gating thing. That might be the best way to do it. All right, so let's look at what is this? LBLs. Okay, let's look at where the label is used. It's used in this text. Okay, so this text line is not used at all if there's no labels. Okay, so a different approach might be more sane approach is to create. I just wanted to avoid creating another variable, but we'll create a boolean here, and then we'll have to go ahead through do it for the other ones that we need. We'll create a boolean, and we'll call it LBLG for label gate, and we'll put its initial value to false. You can do that. Okay, and then here we say if it's LBLS equals none, we'll say the gate is equal to false. Equals false. Okay, and I think that should be okay because I don't think we use it anywhere else. Else, if it's then the LBLG equals true, right? So we're gonna open the gate up. Here, if it equals to none, we're gonna close the gate. Here, if it equals to true, we're gonna open the gate, true, and then we'll go ahead and do these computations, split it, and then this icon paths thing. Oh, right. Right, actually, we need these LBS. So it might have worked because I think the error was coming from this icon paths. That somehow got in there. Sorry. Okay. Right, so that icon paths got to get out of there. That belongs to this part. We'll get to that. Anyways, so LBL is equals none. We're going to shut the gate. This might be a more solid way to do this. Otherwise, it's true. And then we'll split that into its string array. So then we just have to go to where we're using that LBL, and I think it's just in this one area in the draw. That's the text. And we'll just say if LBLG, then do that. Only if it's true. So if LBLG is true, then print that text. So to run that, I think the arguments are still none there. Okay, so no labels. There we go. We got rid of the labels there. Okay. And we can do the same thing for the images then. We'll create a gate up here, and we'll just copy that. We'll call it icon G, icon gate, and then do the same thing here. If it's ICONPS dot equals none, then we're going to say the ICONG equals false. Else, if it's not none, we're going to do all this stuff, as well as set the gate to true. Okay. And then everywhere we use the icon, we have to put that for if statement in there as well. So we use the images twice here. So we're going to say if ICONG, then do that. And then again, if ICONG. Okay. ICONG. Okay. Let's try that. See how that goes. Right. We haven't changed the arguments. So if we want to take away all the things here, the icons in the buttons too, we'll just make that none. And there we go. We just have some blank buttons still behave, have no labels, and no icons or no pictures. Okay, great. And we have a changing color. And so the last thing I want to do in this video, which is really just a repetition with some additional complications of each sort of this one main concept of taking a string, splitting it so we can have a variable array with a variable amount of items in it. We're going to maybe try to address these keys. Now this does have one sort of level of complexity because we have to modulo out a couple different things. All right, we might not have as many buttons as we have keys, and we might not have as many keys as we have buttons, but we'll take care of that. All right, so this is if you want to, instead of having sort of a preset row of keys, we can change the keys that are assigned to our different buttons. Okay, so again, we'll just take this character keys, the things we assign to it, we'll just take those out. We'll just say character keys. We'll initialize that character array there. Okay, we'll create a string that's going to represent the keys that we want in play. So we'll create a string, and it'll be KEYSS, maybe like that, which of course is a constructor variable. So we'll just make sure that's organized as it should be. Okay, and then you notice that that's a string, and these other ones were string as well, but this was a char, so we'll have to convert it to characters, and I'll show you how to do that. But let's add that variable to our constructor. It'll be a string, and it'll be called A, KEYSS. Pass it in. KEYSS equals string A, KEYSS. And then let's deal with it. We'll just do with it right here. So we're going to do like all the other ones. We're going to say and it's going to if we did it like all the other ones, it would look like something like this. It'd be keys equals character keys. So that's, yeah, it's okay. Equals split, and then it'll be KEYSS by this delimiter like that. Okay, but it's going to throw an error because the data types aren't the same. We're looking for an array of characters or symbols. Those are like the things in single quotes, like that's a symbol, that's a character, they call it symbol. And this is a string array, right? If we split a string, it gives a string array. Okay, so but it's a character array. So what we have to do is we have to have an intermediary. So we'll just create a local one. We'll say string, and we'll say whatever, keys temp, something like that. Okay, that's actually string array. Okay, so it's going to be an array of strings that splits that one string, and then we have to convert each of those single strings into characters and then load that into that character array. So we're going to do a for loop. I is less than keys temp dot length I plus plus. Okay, so running a for loop on this string. So basically it's just an extra step because we have to convert. So this is the conversion step. So the first step is to take this one single string that we're passed in as an argument. This processing ID always kind of acts up a little bit. You're right. So we're going to take this one single string and we're going to convert it to an array of strings based on split by that thing called keys temp. And then now we're going to run a for loop on that keys temp array and then convert each of those into a character and then add it to the character array keys. Okay, and the way we do that, I do have another separate sketch this time. Oh, that was the one I showed you earlier, string to character. Okay, so you can do that by using this character at 0, and there's a couple other ones as well. Okay, so character at means it divides the single string. So in this case, it's just one character anyways, but if you take a string and it has a bunch of characters, it would think of this string as an array of characters. So it would be so this would be character 0, that would be slot 1, that would be slot 2, slot 3, slot 4. So if you did character at 4, you'd get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd get this A. Okay, string character at 0. But in our case, it's always going to be the 1, the first one, because we're just going to have it look like something like that. So we'll just do str dot character at 0. Okay. Well, str in this case being the name of the string, right? So take the string, convert it to a character, and grab the character at slot 0, which is the first character of that string, really. Okay. But since all our strings will be just one character, it'll just be the 1. So we're going to convert it. All right. So how does that look here? It looks like this. We're going to take our character array, char keys, keys, which is a character array, right? And we're going to take, because we're for looping it, we're going to take keys I. We have to initialize it too first, sorry. So not only do we split this, but we also say keys equals a character new, char, and it's going to have an array length. It's going to have a number of slots equal to the length of this string, right? Keys temp. So it's going to be keystmp dot length, right? All right. So we're going to split that up into an array of characters. So we're going to initialize the array of characters called keys. Okay. And then we're going to add each of these keys. So keys I. So now it has the same. We have a character array called keys that has the same amount of slots as this keys temp. So we're going to say keys I equals, and we're going to need a string for the input. So it's going to be keystmp, and then I as well. And that's the one that's going to be converted to a character. Char at and 0. Okay. So it's going to take the keys temp string, which is a string, keys temp I. It's an array of strings, but the ith, and it's going to convert it to a string. It's going to take the 0 character and make it a character, and then it's going to add it to the keys array, the character array keys, which is a character array. And so those will be all converted there. Okay. All right. So that was a couple thing process, but essentially the same process, Okay. So let's say I want to use my, say, left hand diagonal thing of buttons. So that's the 1, Q, A, and Z. So if I do that and add that as an array or just a single string to the end of each of these, so buttons will have in double quotes, it'll be 1, colon, Q, colon, A, colon, Z, and then end double quotes. Okay. So we'll copy that there and put that there. All right. And if we run that, we have our buttons, and if I hit the 1 button, see, it'll do those 2, and then if I hit the Q button, A button, and the Z button. Okay. Okay, and that works kind of nice. It's fine, but we've sort of have avoided any problems by not making as many buttons as there are. As many keys as there are buttons. Okay, so there's a couple things we need to do, because in the key press here, we're sorting through the keys, and then we're assigning them to a button. Okay, but what happens is if we have fewer buttons than we have keys, so if I change one of these, say to 2 instead, if I run, it'll throw an error, I think, because if I go 1, 2, and then I press the A button, oh, it repeats itself. I must have fixed that somehow. Okay. Okay, let's see if I actually implemented that already. Right, key press. All right, btrig I number of buttons. That's good. Okay. So yeah, that's an important part. We want to modulo that by the number of buttons so that we will have more keys than, in case we have more buttons than we have keys, and it'll just repeat itself. It'll wrap itself around. Okay. But the same thing here too. If we have four buttons, and then we have keys. We're going to say if key equals keys I, add message I. Right. Actually, yeah, this is probably going to need to change at some point, but let's tackle that when we tackle the OSC messages. There's a whole different thing. There's a few steps we have to go through before we even get to this part. We just have to make a mental note to deal with that. All right. So I think we'll end that there. What did we go over? Basically, just the one process of these arguments, passing these arguments into our classes. When we have sort of more complex or variable number of arguments, such as these labels or colors, we don't know exactly how many pictures we're going to use. We don't know a lot of different things. And so what we'll have to do is we're going to pass in a single string, and then it's going to come in, and then we're going to create both a string variable that can bring it in through the constructor, but also an array of strings, and we split them then. So we take something in, and the easiest examples here, we take the colors and then we split them into an array of strings, that single string, and we do it by some kind of delimiter. So when we actually put it as an argument, it looks like this. Each of our labels separated by a colon. However, when it comes in, it'll become an array of those strings. And then we can use those strings in different ways. So in the case of colors, we had to make sure our strings are in this sort of hex format, and then we use this unhex function to actually make them useful as colors. Different things for both the icons and the labels. We had to make sure that we had some kind of gate that would allow us to use a none in case we don't want any icons or labels in there. And also we had these key things to where we had to convert those from strings to characters. So it would be the same way as if you're sending in some, for example, integer arguments that you're going to use. We haven't done that yet, but you can, if you're using this technique, you can send it as a single string, like 1, 2, 3.5, whatever, and then you can just convert them down here. You can say int that string. You can convert them after the fact. Okay, well, there you go. I'm going to leave that there at that. We've learned to make a couple different modifications to our GUI button class, and still the power of the class to make a bunch of different rows of buttons. And these modifications just make them even more changeable and more universal. So we can take the one class and make a bunch of different things, a bunch of different button arrays that might serve a lot of different needs. Okay, so good luck with that. I hope that works out for you.